It's a strange world. We have animals that look like walking pine cones. We have fish that light up in the dark. A fungus in Oregon is over 2,000 years old and covers nearly 4 square miles, making it one of the largest living things on the planet. A platypus has a duck's bill, a beaver's tail, and venomous spurs on its legs. It lays eggs. But it's a mammal. Life seems endlessly inventive. For billions of years, it has been churning out new designs, new solutions, new ways of being. This process, evolution, feels like an artist with an infinite imagination. It has filled every nook and cranny of this planet with a staggering diversity of forms. The sheer creativity is hard to grasp, and this raises a question. Is the imagination truly infinite? Or is there a limit? Is there a point where evolution runs out of ideas? Not just a practical limit like running out of time or resources, but a fundamental mathematical limit. Is the set of all possible creatures finite? And if so, how much of that set has evolution actually explored? The question feels abstract, but it gets at the very nature of life and the process that generates it. To even start to answer it, we have to think about what evolution is actually doing. It's not an intelligent designer sketching out blueprints. It's a blind process of trial and error guided by the simple rule of what works. What survives, what reproduces, the raw material for this process is the genome. A genome is a set of instructions written in the language of DNA. This language has only 4 letters, A, T, C, and G. Every living thing, from a bacterium to a blue whale, is built from a book written in this 4-letter alphabet. A new creature, a new trait, a new piece of biological creativity comes from a change in that book. A new sequence of letters. So the question about evolution's creativity can be rephrased. How many meaningful books can you write with a 4-letter alphabet? This is where the math comes in. And the numbers get very big, very fast. Let's think about the space of all possibilities. Scientists call this a search space or a possibility space. Imagine a library. This isn't just any library, it's the library of all possible creatures. Every shelf holds a book, and every book is a complete genome, a unique sequence of DNA letters. One book on one shelf describes a bacterium. The book next to it is almost identical, but one letter is different. That tiny change might make the bacterium resistant to an antibiotic. Or it might do nothing at all. Or it might kill it instantly. Most of the books in this library describe things that can't exist. They are gibberish. They are instructions for building a creature that falls apart before it's even built. How big is this library? Let's take a simple example. A small protein might be made of a chain of 100 amino acids. There are 20 common types of amino acids, so the number of possible proteins of that length is 20 multiplied by itself 100 times. That number is a 1 with 130 zeros after it. For comparison, the number of atoms in the entire observable universe is estimated to be a 1 with about 80 zeros. So, just to find one specific functional protein of a modest size, you are searching through a space of possibilities that is vastly larger than the number of atoms in the universe. And that's just for one tiny protein. A simple organism like the E. coli bacterium has a genome with about 4.6 million DNA letters. The number of possible sequences of that length is 4 raised to the power of 4.6 million. This is a number so large that it is meaningless. It's not just big, it's incomprehensibly, fundamentally, absurdly big. If you were to write out this number, the string of zeros would stretch for millions of pages. The library of all possible creatures isn't just big. It is, for all practical purposes, infinite. This is the first great mathematical limit on evolution. The set of all possible biological forms encoded in all possible DNA sequences is too vast to ever be explored fully. Evolution is a search process, but it's searching a space so large that it could never, ever hope to check every option. If evolution worked by randomly assembling genomes and seeing what happened, nothing would ever happen. The chance of randomly hitting a sequence that codes for a viable, reproducing organism is effectively 0. It would be like a monkey at a typewriter trying to write a Shakespearean sonnet. The number of possible combinations of letters is so huge that even with billions of years and billions of monkeys, you wouldn't get a single line of coherent poetry. Life would never have gotten started. So this is a profound limit. Evolution cannot create everything that is mathematically possible. It hasn't tried every combination. It never will. The vast majority of all possible life forms, the endless shelves in that conceptual library, will never exist. They won't even be tried. But this raises an immediate and obvious problem. If the search space is too big to search, how did we get here? How did we get the platypus and the light-up fish? How did we get anything at all? The answer is that evolution doesn't search randomly. This is the crucial point. It's not a monkey typing randomly. It's a monkey that gets a banana every time it types a correct letter. It's a guided search. The guide is natural selection. Imagine a vast, dark landscape. This landscape represents all the possible genomes. Most of the landscape is flat, barren desert. These are the non-viable, gibberish genomes. But here and there, a few hills and mountains poke up out of the desert. These peaks represent functional living organisms. The higher the peak, the better the organism is at surviving and reproducing in its environment. A random search would be like dropping a helicopter at a random point in this landscape and hoping to land on a mountain. The chances are vanishingly small. You'll almost certainly land in the endless desert. Evolution doesn't do that. It starts somewhere on a tiny little hill, maybe the simplest possible self-replicating molecule. Then, it takes small, random steps in every direction. These are the mutations. Most steps lead downhill, or onto flat ground. Those versions die out. But a few steps, by pure chance, lead slightly uphill. These versions are a little bit better at surviving. They reproduce more. The population starts to creep up the hill. This is the power of incremental cumulative selection. Evolution is a hill climber. It never has to see the whole landscape. It just has to be able to tell which of its immediate next steps is uphill. It can't make huge leaps across the desert from one mountain to another. It has to walk. It has to find a continuous upward path from the foothills to the summit. The biologist Richard Dawkins called this climbing Mount improbable. It's improbable. You could get to the top in a single leap, but it's very possible if you take it one small, successful step at a time. This completely changes the nature of the problem. Evolution isn't trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's trying to find the highest point in a landscape by always taking a step in the uphill direction. This is a much, much more efficient way to search. It's how evolution creates complexity. The eye didn't appear overnight in all its glory. It started as a simple light-sensitive spot on the skin. This was better than nothing, so it was selected for. Then, maybe the spot became slightly indented, which gave a better sense of the direction of light. That was an improvement. Then the indentation deepened into a pinhole, which could form a crude image. And so on, step by step, over millions of years, until you have a complex camera eye with a lens and an iris. Each step was a small improvement, a small step up the mountain. Evolution also has another trick up its sleeve. It doesn't always have to invent things from scratch. It's a master of recycling. It co-opts existing structures for new purposes. This is called exaptation. Feathers are a perfect example. They almost certainly first evolved for insulation, to keep small dinosaurs warm. They were good at that. They were an adaptation for warmth. But once they existed, these lightweight, complex structures could be used for something else. They could be used for flight. A structure that evolved for one purpose was co-opted for a completely new one. This is a huge shortcut. It means evolution doesn't have to invent the idea of an airfoil from nothing. It just has to tinker with an existing structure, a feather, and find a new use for it. This happens all the time. The bones in our inner ear, which are crucial for hearing, started out as jaw bones in our distant reptile ancestors. Lungs in some fish evolved into swim bladders for controlling buoyancy. So, while the mathematical space of all possibilities is a limit, evolution has incredibly powerful ways of navigating it. Natural selection guides the search, and exaptation allows it to jump between different functional paths. This is how it generates its creativity. It's not infinite, but it's powerful enough to build the world we see. But there are other kinds of limits. The mathematical space of possibility is one thing. The physical space of what can actually exist is another. The universe has rules. These rules are the laws of physics and chemistry. Evolution is a powerful process, but it can't break these laws. They form another, harder set of constraints. Think about size. Why are there no insects the size of elephants? It's not because evolution hasn't tried. It's because it's physically impossible. An insect's body plan doesn't scale up. They breathe through a series of small tubes that run through their bodies. The efficiency of this system depends on their surface area, but their oxygen needs depend on their volume. As an organism gets bigger, its volume increases much faster than its surface area. This is the square cube law. An ant scaled up to the size of an elephant would suffocate. It simply couldn't get enough oxygen to its cells. Its exoskeleton, so strong at a small scale, would also be too heavy to support its own weight. It would collapse. Physics dictates the limits of materials. Bone can only be so strong. Muscle can only generate so much force. A cell membrane can only withstand so much pressure. These aren't suggestions, they are hard limits. Evolution can be incredibly creative with the materials it has. Bone, keratin, cellulose, but it can't make them do things they are not physically capable of doing. It can't build a creature out of diamond or steel. It has to work with carbon-based chemistry in a water-based environment. This brings us to one of the classic examples of a physical constraint, the wheel. Why have no animals evolved wheels? We use them everywhere. They are an incredibly efficient solution for getting around on flat surfaces. Yet, in billions of years of evolution, not a single rotating limb has appeared on a vertebrate. The reason is not mathematical, but developmental and physical. How would a body grow a wheel? A wheel has to be a separate object, rotating freely on an axle. How would you supply it with blood vessels and nerves? A rotating connection would twist and sever any living tissue that tried to cross it. You'd have to have some kind of system for intermittently connecting and disconnecting, which is a massive biological challenge. And even if you could solve that, wheels are only useful on a very specific type of terrain, hard, flat surfaces. They are terrible in mud, in forests, on rocky ground, or in water. Legs are a far more versatile solution for the kinds of environments most animals live in. The physical and developmental hurdles are so high that legs are simply a better, more accessible solution for a biological system. Evolution never found a path up Mount Wheel because the foothills were too steep. So physics and chemistry draw hard lines around what is possible. The mathematical space is vast, but the physically plausible space is much, much smaller. Evolution can only play in the sandbox the laws of nature allow. There is a third type of limit, and it might be the most powerful of all. It's the limit of history. Evolution doesn't start from a clean slate. Every new organism is a modification of an old one. It is constrained by its own past. This is called path dependence. Think of it like building a car. If you could start from scratch, you might design a sleek, efficient electric vehicle. But imagine you were forced to start with the chassis of a 100-year-old Ford Model T. You could add things to it. You could replace the engine, put on new tires, add a GPS, but it would still have the fundamental architecture of a Model T. You could never turn it into a Tesla, because you are stuck with the decisions made a century ago. Evolution is like that. It's a tinkerer, not an engineer. It modifies what's already there. Sometimes this leads to incredibly strange and inefficient designs because it's stuck with a historical legacy it can't shake. The best example of this is the recurrent laryngeal nerve in giraffes and in us. This nerve controls the larynx, our voice box. In the brain, the origin of this nerve is right next to the larynx. The most logical path would be for the nerve to go directly from the brain to the larynx, a distance of a few inches. But it doesn't. Instead, the nerve travels all the way down the neck, into the chest, loops around a major artery near the heart, and then travels all the way back up the neck to connect to the larynx. In a giraffe, this means a nerve that has to travel a few inches takes a detour of about 15 feet. It's a ridiculous, absurdly bad design. Why? History. Our very distant ancestors were fish. In fish, the nerve's path was direct. It passed by an artery near the gills on its way to control them. As vertebrates evolved and moved onto land, the body plan changed dramatically. The neck stretched. The heart moved down into the chest. But the basic wiring plan was already set. The nerve was already hooked around that artery. Evolution couldn't just reroute the nerve. That would require a massive, simultaneous set of mutations that were unlikely to happen. The only uphill path was to just make the nerve longer. So, as the neck of our ancestors, and especially the giraffe's ancestors, got longer, that nerve just got stretched along with it, taking its ridiculously long historical detour. The giraffe's nerve is a beautiful illustration of evolution's limits. It shows that evolution is not aiming for perfection. It's just aiming for good enough. An optimal, intelligently designed giraffe would not have this nerve. But an evolved giraffe does, because it is a product of its fishy history. It is constrained by the past. It cannot just jump to a better design if there isn't a continuous, step-by-step path to get there from where it is now. This historical contingency means that much of what we see in the living world is not necessarily the best possible solution. It's just the solution that happens to be found from a particular starting point. If you could rewind the tape of life and play it again, you might get a completely different set of creatures. The history would be different, so the outcomes would be different. This is a profound limit on creativity. Evolution can't create what it can't reach from its current position, so we have three big limits. The mathematical limit of a search space too vast to explore, the physical limit of the laws of nature, and the historical limit of being stuck with the baggage of the past. It might sound like evolution is hopelessly constrained, its creativity boxed in on all sides. But there is a fascinating twist to this story. Sometimes these limits seem to have the opposite effect. They can actually funnel evolution towards the same solutions over and over again. This phenomenon is called convergent evolution. It's the tendency of unrelated species to independently evolve similar traits because they are adapting to similar environments or ecological niches. A shark is a fish. An ichthyosaur was a marine reptile. A dolphin is a mammal. These three animals are from completely different branches of the tree of life, separated by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Yet, they look remarkably similar. They all have a streamlined, torpedo-shaped body, fins, and a powerful tail. Why? Because the laws of physics are the same for all of them. The problem of moving through water with minimum resistance has a very good solution: a streamlined body. The physical constraints of hydrodynamics are so strong that they have pushed these three completely different lineages to converge on the same basic design. We see this everywhere. The wings of a bat, a bird, and a pterosaur are structurally different because of their different histories, but they converged on the same functional shape and airfoil to solve the problem of flight. The camera-like eyes of an octopus and a human are astonishingly similar, yet our last common ancestor was probably a tiny, simple worm-like creature with no eyes at all. The eye evolved independently in our two lineages. This tells us something profound about the creative landscape. While the number of possible forms is almost infinite, the number of good, stable solutions to common life problems like seeing, flying, or swimming might be quite small and limited. The landscape might be mostly flat desert, but the few mountains that exist are powerful attractors. And evolution, starting from different places, will often find its way up the slopes of the same mountain. So, in a strange way, the limits on evolution are also a source of its patterns. The creativity is not a random explosion of infinite forms. It's a process channeled by constraints. The rules of the game are what make the game interesting. The limits are what give it structure. This brings us to a final, more speculative question. Given all these constraints, is evolution running out of steam? Has it already discovered most of the good tricks? Some scientists would argue that, in a sense, yes. The major burst of evolutionary creativity in terms of fundamentally new body plans, the basic architecture of animals, happened a very long time ago, during the Cambrian explosion over 500 million years ago. In a relatively short period of geological time, almost all the major animal phyla we see today appeared. It was a riot of experimentation. Since then, evolution has mostly been tinkering with those established body plans, not inventing completely new ones. We have seen new variations on the theme of vertebrate or insect, but we haven't seen a fundamentally new way of building a large, multicellular animal. Perhaps the historical constraints are now so strong, the existing designs so entrenched, that breaking out and creating a new phylum is almost impossible. The low-hanging fruit has all been picked. Evolution is now in a phase of refinement, not radical invention. But that's only looking at things on our scale, the scale of big animals. If you look elsewhere, the creativity is far from over. Look at the microscopic world. Bacteria and viruses are evolving at a blistering pace. They are constantly inventing new biochemical pathways, new ways to infect cells, new defenses against our drugs. Their search space is just as vast, but their generation times are incredibly short, so they can explore it much faster. The creative engine is still running at full tilt. It's just that the action might have shifted from creating new body shapes to creating new molecular machinery. The evolution of a new way for a bacterium to break down plastic might be just as creative, in a chemical sense, as the evolution of the wing was in a mechanical sense. So, is there a mathematical limit to evolution's creativity? The answer is a resounding yes. The space of all possible life is too vast for evolution to ever fully explore. It's limited by math, by physics, and by its own history. But this isn't a pessimistic conclusion, it's what makes the story of life so remarkable. Evolution is not an all-powerful God. It is a blind, stumbling, messy process that works with what it has. It is constrained and limited at every turn, and yet, look at what it has produced. Working within these tight, unforgiving limits, it has generated a world of breathtaking complexity and diversity. It has built brains that can contemplate the universe. It has found ways to live in the crushing pressure of the deep sea and the searing heat of volcanic vents. It has turned a simple, four-letter alphabet into poetry. The creativity of evolution is not impressive because it is infinite. It is impressive because it is not. It's the art of the possible. It's the genius of finding a way against all odds, within a strict set of rules. The limits are not a cage that restricts evolution. They are the frame that gives the masterpiece its shape. And the canvas is far from full.